Hey guys, welcome back to the Ask for Speed channel. I'm Jason Speed, bringing you another Speed Reacts video where I react to car buying advice or tips or guides to see if it's good advice or bad advice. So let me go to my YouTube and look up car buying, car buying guide. Let's see what I could find. I know I did a video with Chevy Dude before. He was great. Car Edge, Pops, and Zach are giving you real good advice on car buying tips. So check out those two channels. Those guys, I 100% agree with everything they say. Lots of experience of selling cars in the business, and they give you advice of real things that actually work and to your benefit. How to beat the dealer. How to negotiate the best deal with a car dealer step by step. This Car Help Corner has 200,000 subscribers. So let's see if the 167,000 views advice on how to negotiate the best deal with the car dealer is good advice or bad advice. Let's check it out.
How do you negotiate the best deal with the dealership? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. For this video, I'm going to take you step by step on how to negotiate the best deal when shopping for a new car that will save you time, save you money, and make you feel confident that you scored an outstanding deal. As a consumer advocate and a professional car buyer for over 10 years, I've helped thousands of consumers using these strategies, and after watching this video, you'll be able to do it too. But before getting into it, a huge thanks to OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator, for sponsoring a portion of this video. So first off, any car purchase has a shopping phase and a buying phase. We're going to skip over the shopping phase where you're doing your research, you're going for test drives at different dealerships, and you're basically figuring out what kind of car you want to buy. Once you've made that decision, you're now ready for the buying phase. Now, the buying phase has three pillars that you need to understand. The first pillar is the price of the car itself. The second pillar is the financing or leasing parts of the deal. And the third pillar is your trade-in vehicle if you happen to have one. Now, each of these three pillars needs to be treated separately in order to get the best overall deal. We're going to start things off with the first pillar.
So I do agree it is a tactic to separate the three of those and maybe not give the dealership all the information. That's what you're intending to do. If you have a trade, if you intend on financing, be aware that some dealerships do have discounts available if you are financing with them, if you do have a trade, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just be aware that, if you're not a one price dealership like AutoNation, they might have specific discounts or fees depending on how you purchase the vehicle. So just be aware of that.
Which is negotiating the price of the car you're buying. A great place to start here is to visit the car manufacturer website, where you can build your car and get an idea of what a baseline price should be, including the mandatory charges and any rebates or incentives that you may be entitled to.
When you say baseline, you have to be very careful, because when you see, even on the manufacturers, like commercials or websites, they'll say this Toyota Prius starts at this price. That's not the baseline price you need to be considering, because that's the very entry level, no option that you can't even really get, because some of them come standard with options that you have to get, right? So when you talk about baseline price, it's not a starting from MSRP, it's the MSRP of the vehicle equipped the way you'd want it equipped, because every single option that you add to that vehicle changes the price. So just be aware of that.
When you build a car on a manufacturer website, the final step or summary is usually where you can see the price breakdown with the mandatory charges.
Also, the thing about manufacturing websites when it comes to building a car, in the summary page, specifically the summary page, will show you a net price, and it's based on average incentives for your area. Not everybody will get that same price. You can't go to a dealership and print out your summary and say, this MSRP is this, I want it for this. They have to look into what we at least called the incentive configurator to see what rebates that specific person might qualify for. A TDM is a target direct mailer. You might have a TDM discount applied that would save you more money, or it could be something that a handful of rebates or one of the rebates that are in there are qualifying rebates, and you have to qualify for those rebates. So everything that the website tells you is aimed at connecting you to a dealership. So it might not be 100% accurate.
Any available rebates or incentives, and the out-the-door total price. Essentially, with a new car on top of the MSRP, the only mandatory charges are a delivery and destination fee, also known as freight or PDI, a few small levies which include your licensing and registration, and your sales tax. That's it. Now, just because this is the price that you see on the car manufacturer website, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the same price that you'll see on a dealer website or the price that the dealership will offer you. Many dealerships have all kinds of additional charges and fees which you might not be expecting. These can include an administration or a dock fee, a security, etching, or anti-theft fee, and a wide assortment of protection products or packages which inflate the price. Take a look at this example. The dealership has automatically added an anti-theft wheel and tire nitrogen fee for $637. They've added wheel locks and mats, undercoating for $988, and an extended warranty for almost $3,500. None of these charges should be mandatory, and you should have the ability to negotiate them out of the deal if the dealer attempts to charge them, over and above the dealer's advertised price. Another benefit of the manufacturer website is that you can go to the offers and rebate section to get a better understanding of the incentives that may be available.
I've said this before, I 100% agree with that. You should always know or have a good idea of what incentives are available to you. Now, I will say, when I mentioned the TDM earlier, if you go to the manufacturer website and build a car, a lot of times there might be something that pops up that says, hey, fill this information out and get an additional such and such discount. When I was with the Stellantis world with Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, that was something that we would even encourage our customers to do in the showroom, maybe on their phone or something like that, to fill out that form, and that would trigger another discount that they would get as a rebate from Stellantis. So there are ways that you could do that.
And make sure to note them down. You should also make sure to note down whether any of these rebates or incentives are part of the price breakdown when you build your vehicle. At this point, you should have a really good idea of what your baseline price should be without any additional dealer charges or add-ons. This should be your starting point for negotiation. Another really useful tool which you can use for negotiating a price is a dealer invoice price report. This will show you the invoice price or dealer cost for the car, which is the price the dealer pays, so that you can compare.
Most dealers not always willing to show you that. I know it's something that we didn't really show a lot, not because we were trying to hide anything, but it's more of an internal document. So what the dealership pays and what they're listing for are often not related, just the same as what you pay for your car and what you're trying to sell it for when you're trying to trade it in are not related, right? The manufacturer suggested retail price is what MSRP is what they say you should be selling this car for. And then there's incentives, and then there's discounts and all those other things. Dealer invoice may not be readily available when you ask a new car dealer for it. It may not be readily available. And especially in the used car world, even if they show you the numbers, you might not, how do you know for sure that what they're showing you, what their cost is actually their cost? Majority of the time when I've showed that, they still don't believe me, and I'm showing them right on my computer what my actual cost is in that car. So it's kind of a perception is reality type thing in that. And if you have a dealership that's willing to show it to you, great, but you still just don't know if that's the actual truth. I know most of the dealerships I worked at had what's called manufacturer or dealership holdback, where the invoice is not the actual price of what the dealership gets it for. They have the holdback, which is that difference in the invoice and the holdback of what they actually paid for it. So even if you have a dealership that's willing to show you the invoice, they may not mention the holdback, or they may not show you the holdback. Dealers are in business to make a profit, and part of the way they do that is by selling above what they paid for a car. So
you can compare this to the MSRP and see how much profit margin the dealer has. This is a tool which we offer through our service, and it is a very useful one to have so that you have an understanding of how much negotiating room there is. Normally, most new cars have a profit margin of around 5 to 10%.
False. False. At least in the Chrysler world. I know like brands like Audi or high-end brands, they have a bigger markup, and maybe on average is the way that he's getting away with saying this, but that's 100% false. The like a new Jeep Renegade or a new Jeep Compass, when we were selling those, there might be $400 or $500 between the MSRP and the invoice, and maybe another $500 or $600 in holdback and dealer holdback. So 10% false. That's not a real statistic.
Which means that if a car has an MSRP of say $40,000, that means the invoice price or the dealer cost should be around $36,000 to $38,000, which means you have approximately $2,000 to $4,000 worth of negotiating room.
And especially in the case of Jeep, where they had Grand Cherokees on the lot, and in efforts to help people save money on a new Grand Cherokee, they re-invoiced the vehicle, right? So they came out after the vehicle's already been built and delivered to the dealership. They came back and said, on this group of VIN numbers, we're going to issue a new manufacturer Monroney sticker and say the MSRP is lower than what we initially said, and in turn make the invoice lower than what we initially said. So even if you get a dealer to show you the invoice, you don't even know if that's the current invoice. It's just not an effective way of negotiating. It's, hey, show me all your cards before I make my bet. You know, it just doesn't work.
So let's put this all together in an example using an invoice price report which I prepared based on a 2025 Honda Pilot. We can see in the price breakdown we have the MSRP, we have some options which is a paint charge, we have our destination charge which is $2,000, and just below that we have some mandatory levies which only add around $150 total. Now below that we have the important part. Here we have our customer cash rebate, which is an incentive from Honda. This is $2,000 off the total price. And below that we have our dealer discount, which we've negotiated, which in this case is an additional $1,000. Now this is a pretty reasonable discount for this particular model, because as we can see from the invoice price is around $2,500 below the MSRP. So with a $1,000 discount, that means the dealership is still making around $1,500 profit. Pretty fair and reasonable. And that's about it. Below that, all we have is our sales tax, which brings us to our out the door price. Pretty straightforward. So now that we have our target price and we know what we want to pay for the car we're buying, it's now time to approach dealerships in our area by email to get a price quote. Now, it's really important that you contact dealers remotely by email, because this will give you a really good idea of how professional and transparent they are. Anytime a dealership refuses to give you a price by email and tells you that you need to come into the dealership before they can discuss any pricing, well, that's typically a major red flag.
I would agree. I would never do business with, if I'm looking for an out the door number before I get there, and you're not going to give one to me, I'm never showing up. Although I'm not the type of buyer that would call and ask for an out the door number before I get there. I want to make sure I like the car first, because if I like the car, if I don't like the car, the numbers don't matter. There's not a number you can give me in the world that would make me want to buy it if I don't like the car. So I agree.
Once the dealers send you the quotes, you can compare them and see which one has the best offer. I would recommend contacting at least 3 to 4 dealers in your area so that you can see competing offers and can compare them. You'll want to take the best dealer quote and compare it to your target price. How much higher is the dealer quote? Are they charging additional fees? Have they added any products or add-ons that you did not ask for? This is when the negotiating takes place. Tell the dealership.
That's another type of dealership I'll never deal with, is somebody who adds in mandatory packages that you don't ask for or want. I won't do business. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you discount your car $4,000 if you add $4,000 back in. Of course, yeah, I'll discount my car $4,000 and still make my money on the other side of the products that I'm adding, because it doesn't cost them $4,000 to put all that stuff on there, right? Or whatever the case is. So I would never do business with a dealership that has add-on fees or even conditional fees like finance assist or trade assist or anything like that.
Dealership what your target price is and that you're ready to buy if they match the price. Telling the dealership that you're ready to buy shows how serious you are, and they're more likely to work with you on the price. And just basically go with whichever dealership either matches the price or at least comes closest to it. I should also mention that you need to be reasonable with how much you try to negotiate. For example, if you're trying to buy a car that is very difficult to get and has a long waiting period because dealers have no inventory, well, you probably won't be able to negotiate a discount close to the invoice price.
Something I agree with. Very true.
But if you're trying to buy a car that has plenty of inventory, dealerships are going to be a lot more motivated to move them, and they're more likely to work with you when negotiating, and it's far more likely that you'll be able to get closer to that 5 to 10% discount closer to the invoice price.
Amount of inventory is more important than days in inventory. So another point I agree with.
But remember, any rebates that you're eligible for should be added on top of any dealer discount that you negotiate. The dealer is not giving you the rebate. The manufacturer is. So don't let the dealer let you believe that they are already giving you a deal just because you're getting a rebate. Okay, now that we've covered the price, it's now time to talk about the second pillar of the car buying process, which is financing or leasing. We always begin by negotiating the price of the car first, because when you get the price of the car as low as possible, this will ensure that you have the lowest payments possible, whether you're financing or leasing. A lower vehicle price means lower payments. It's as simple as that. Now, when buying a car that you plan to finance or lease, doing so through the dealer with the manufacturer financing is often the best way to do it.
Okay, so one thing I will say about lease versus purchase, okay? If the lease makes sense for you, great. It's a great way to, buy a new car every couple of years and, have it covered under warranty. I will say this though, if you are negotiating the sales price of a car and then switch it to a lease, not only will you see a difference in the incentives, there'll be purchase incentives versus lease incentives, but also there could be, I've seen it happen even at dealers that I was working at. They might say, oh, that discount is only available on the purchase side because they get to send that to a bank as a finance unit. A lease is not a finance. So the dealership doesn't make the same kind of money on a lease sending it to one of either the manufacturer or maybe one or two other banks that will actually lease as they would on the finance side. So you may not have as much leverage on discounts on the lease side, but you usually end up with a much better monthly payment on the lease side. The lease, you do have the option to buy the car at the end. Of course, there's a bunch of information online about leasing and how leasing works, but just know that on the purchase side, you have more leverage in financing than you do on the lease side. So just be aware of that.
Manufacturers often have incentivized interest rates, especially on models that they're trying to aggressively move or clear out, sometimes with close to 0% interest, which you will not get from a bank or credit union. Now, by all means, you can certainly shop around and check with your local banks or credit unions to make sure that you're getting the best interest rate.
I would 100% recommend that. Not necessarily shop around, go from bank to bank to bank, and then just have them run your credit and see what they can get you approved for. But if there's a bank that you normally do business with and trust, go to that bank, get pre-qualified before you go to a dealership, tell them exactly what you're trying to do and what they would approve you for. You'd have a baseline number to fall back on in case a dealer who offers you financing can't get to that interest rate, right? Now, also, be aware of whatever interest rate they approve you of, what term, because that can be different based on term. So if they say, yeah, we can get you, like right now, interest rates are, 6 to 8% on the better side. So yeah, we can get you a 5.5%, but it's a 48-month term. That's going to skyrocket your payment because it's condensing that into a short term. Versus we can get you a 6% in a 72 or 75-month term or longer, whatever it is. Then that would be a better option as far as keeping your monthly payment lower. Be aware of that.
Possible. But typically when it comes to new cars, Manufacturers have the lowest rates because of the incentives. And it's also worth remembering that these interest rates are fixed and non-negotiable, which makes the whole process a lot simpler. Now, used cars are a different story, and that's where...
Before we dip into used cars, one other quick thing to mention is when you look at incentivized rates, like a 0% for such and such time from the manufacturer, a lot of times, in my experience, that is in lieu of the other rebates available on the standard purchase financing side. What I mean by that is it replaces, you either get the heavier rebates or the better rate from the manufacturer. So you can't get, save $6,000 or $7,000 off the new Ram 1500 and 0% for 36 months. It won't work. You'll get one of the two. Just be aware, most manufacturers do that. Now, on to used cars.
Shopping around and checking different banks or credit unions does make a lot of sense. Now, it's important to understand that borrowing money to buy a car does come with some risks attached. So here's some valuable tips from Omvic that you should keep in mind. If you contact your financial institution, ask about your credit score and the financing options available to you based on your score. Know that if a dealer is arranging the financing, they may submit your loan application to multiple lenders. So make it clear that you do not want your credit checked by multiple lenders, as this...
Correct. Go to the dealership saying, you have, let them know so that they're not running your credit a bunch of times. You got pre-qualified at the bank, you're at this percent, you can show them in writing. Again, give the dealership the opportunity to earn your business, but you have something to fall back on in case they can't earn the financing for it. So at my bank, they said they give me 5.5. If you guys can get me to 5.5, I'll do paperwork today. If you can't get me to 5.5, then I'll go to my bank and get a draft and I'll come back.
Can negatively hurt your score. To protect yourself, ensure that you know exactly who your application was submitted to and ask about each lender's offered terms and rates. And always verify the accuracy of the information provided on the application before it's submitted, and the accuracy of all the information on the contract before you sign. And always make sure that you read the contract very carefully before you sign. Remember, in many locations, including here in Ontario, there is no cooling off period. So once you sign that contract, the deal is final. To learn more about your car buying rights...
At AutoNation, on every car we sell, there is a 5-day or 250-mile return policy, no questions asked, for refund. However, in my 10-year long of doing this is the first dealership I've worked at that offers anything like that. And I've worked in dealerships in Florida, I've worked in dealerships in Utah. Nobody has any kind of grace period. AutoNation does.
And to access free car buying resources, just visit the Omvic website. More information can be found in the description below. Okay, we've discussed negotiating the price of the car that you're buying. We've discussed the financing and leasing terms. It's now time to discuss the third and final pillar of the car buying process, and that is your trade-in car. Now, you want to make sure that you negotiate your trade-in separately from the rest of the deal, because you want to make sure that you're getting a great price for the car that you're buying while also getting a fair price for your trade-in car. One of the best ways to get a fair price for your trade...
Okay, I do want to clarify. I think he's meaning take care of the price of the car first before you mention that you have a trade, but not separate it in the deal. And the reason why you don't want to separate it, you actually want to have it as a trade, is because some states offer a tax credit. What that is the difference of taxes you're going to be paying. Let's say round numbers, keep the formula simple. You're looking at a $20,000 car. You have a car that you're trading in that's worth $15,000. You're only going to be paying taxes on that $5,000 difference. In some states, there are some states where you'll be paying taxes on both, but some states have a tax credit. So you definitely want to have it as part of the deal. If you decide that you want to trade in, they give you a fair offer to get the additional tax savings. So you're not paying the full amount in taxes in whatever applicable state.
Is to take advantage of online instant cash offer tools, which are available on websites such as AutoTrader.
I disagree 100%. There's not a database, at least that I've seen, that will agree to buy a car without seeing it first, without inspecting it first. Most dealerships are the same way. Gives you a general idea, and there's KBB again. Gives you general idea, but it's just a starting point. Take your car to a dealership, even if it's not the dealership that you're looking at buying a car from. Take it to another dealership. I know pre-owned inventory is hard to find right now. I've got my cars available. I just wanted to see if you would be willing to buy it and what it'd be worth. Take it to a few different dealerships and get a solid number on what you can get for it. Because in the event where you go to the dealership and you're ready to trade in your car and they lowball you on your trade because you've negotiated very well on the price of their car, they're trying to make some money back, you have a number that you can fall back on. Well, XYZ dealership gave me this. Can you guys do it? No. Well, cool. Here's what I'll do. I'll go sell it to them because the difference in what I'm getting for them from selling it is going to be more than what I'm getting for the tax savings. And then I'll come back and buy your car.
Auto Trader, Kelley Blue Book, Carvana, Clutch, and others. I recommend using all of the ones that are available in your area and save the one that gives you the highest offer. Remember, this is a real offer from a dealer that will buy your car. So use this to negotiate a fair trade-in offer with the dealer.
A lot of times it's not a real offer. A lot of times this is a starting point. Again, they won't a lot of times buy cars sight unseen in most situations.
That you're buying your new car from. Once you've established a fair trade-in value for your car, this value should be deducted from the price of the new car that you're buying before sales tax is charged, which means that you get a tax savings as well. And this is true whether you decide to pay cash, finance, or lease. Once this step is done, the deal is now pretty much fully negotiated.
Actually, in some states, if you're going from a vehicle that you've financed to a vehicle that you are now leasing, that transaction does not have tax savings. Same thing vice versa. If you're going from a leased vehicle to a purchased vehicle, that trade-in vehicle that you're leasing does not have tax savings going into the purchase. It's only purchase to purchase, lease to lease. It's the only time when you have a trade where there's tax savings, not mixing and matching. Just FYI.
So all that is left for you to decide are the remaining factors, such as whether you want to make a down payment, the length of the loan or lease terms, and whether you want to purchase any additional dealer products. If you are financing the car, I always recommend making a large down payment, at least 10 to 20%, and going with a shorter loan term, up to 48 months. The higher the interest rate, the shorter the loan should be so that you minimize the amount of money that you spend on interest. If you're leasing the car, you should go with a loan term of around 24 to 48 months at the most and go with a zero down payment. You should not be making a large...
So the other thing that I will say from my new car experience is each individual car will have its own individual term for leasing. That is the best term, and it's different on every car. It all depends on the residual value or the value of the car at the end of the term. Wranglers, for example, hold their values very well because they're a 4x4 convertible SUV that doesn't really compare to a lot of things on the market. Same thing like Gladiator and different things like that. So they'll have a different residual at the end of a term than, say, like a Toyota Highlander, right? So it's just a matter of each individual car has its own individual best terms. I've seen 24 months, I've seen 36, I've seen 48, I've seen 42. I've seen 42 is a sweet spot for a lot of the cars, but I've even seen a 60 month, and I don't understand who that makes sense for, but each car will have its own best term.
A large down payment anytime you're leasing a car. And as for dealer add-ons and additional products, well, that's ultimately up to you, but it's really important that you do not...
Okay, so the reason why you don't want to make a huge down payment when you're leasing a car, make whatever down payment is required to get to that payment, or see if you can roll that difference in down payment into the payment. But the reason why you never want to make a huge down payment on a lease is because leases come with a gap insurance policy. And it's a gap insurance policy that protects the lessor, or the bank protects their asset in the event that something would happen to the car and an accident, they would pay the loan off. If you go and put $10,000 down on a new Mercedes lease, and then halfway into your lease, you wreck your car, you're not getting any of your down payment back. Or if you drive off the lot and wreck your car, you're not getting any of your down payment back. All they do is pay off that lease. And then you're left with now having to go get another car without any equity. So just be aware of that.
Feel pressured to pay for any dealer products that they might try and sell you. Now, some of these products, such as an extended warranty, might have value to you depending on your situation, but they could also be extremely overpriced or just unnecessary. So you need to evaluate all the dealer products extremely carefully on your own time, do some research, and make a decision whether it's worth it to purchase them or not. Do not feel pressured to purchase anything without knowing what you're buying. And remember, only sign the contract when you're 100% certain that you want to buy the car, that you've read everything extremely carefully, and that you're happy with the deal. Because more often than not, in many locations, such as here in Ontario, the deal is final once you sign. There is no cooling off period. So, safe to say, buying a car is not always an easy or a straightforward process. But if you follow the strategies in this video, chances are you will.
And in some cases, the deal isn't final until you take delivery of the car. That could be the gray area for some dealerships. So if you sign on the dotted line, and you're like, before you even leave, I don't want this car. I made a mistake. I don't want to rip up the contract. And you leave without the car. Some dealers have a legal obligation to say, yeah, he never took delivery. He signed for it, but unless you drive it over that curb, a lot of dealerships won't count it as a completed deal.
Save yourself a lot of money, and you will avoid having buyer's remorse. So if you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe. You can also take a look at my other videos by clicking these links over here. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, and if you need any additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting...
Okay, so overall, Car Help Corner gave some really, really good advice when it comes to buying a car in general. I don't think he gave the best advice when it comes to negotiating, which is the old premise of the video, because some of those negotiating tactics don't necessarily work. However, if you do find that they work from dealerships that you shop at, or if you were shopping dealership to dealership until you just keep going until you do find that they work, then great, you're saving money. I am so appreciative of you guys helping this channel grow. I'm gonna wrap it up here. Give me a like on the video, give me a comment, and let me know what you'd like me to react to next. I would really appreciate a subscribe. I'm really close to my subscriber goal of 1,000, which would earn me my first YouTube paycheck. If you guys wouldn't mind helping with that, it would mean the world to me and my family. I'll keep making these videos. You guys tell me what you want me to react to. In the meantime, I'll just keep reacting to car buying advice. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great night.